Hello again. Welcome to another edition of Media Watch. I'm your co-host, Eric Tait.
I'm Bob Anthony.
I'm Raymond Peterson.
And I'm their guest and friend, Alan Singer.
Educator, historian, Dr. Alan Singer, a regular on Media Watch. So thank you for being with us, Dr. Singer. And we're taping this on November
8th,
the Wednesday after the off-year elections. And it's being brought to you by the good graces of EVT Educational Productions, Zoom, and at some point it'll show up on Manhattan Neighborhood Network online and on their cable access outlet. And speaking off-year elections and etc., why don't we do a recap, guys, on what transpired? Because it looks like the Democrats did fairly well, and the folks that are trying to roll back the Supreme Court's rolling back of Roe versus Wade did quite well. Who wants to take a lead on some of that election roundup?
I mean, I'm just reading from what the New York Times said. They point out that the Democrats did well where they wanted to, not all over the place, but in Virginia, they got hold of the both houses of the state legislature, which the Republicans didn't think would happen, but did. In Ohio, just what you were talking about, Eric, the people voted to defend abortion rights, which is a big win, for a state which was on the bubble, I guess. And so Democrats made some headway, not universal by any extent, but Governor Beshear I'm sorry, what state is that?
Beshear in Kentucky, yeah.
In Kentucky, correct. A Democrat held on to that post in an otherwise pure red state. And he won re-election, which is something that, that's rather unique in Kentucky government. So yeah, it's an often
that Beshear is the first governor to have a consecutive two-term in the state of Kentucky.
Ever?
So that's history making. Go ahead.
No, and that was the gist of the New York Times roundup, that the Democrats did better, but in the Republicans did well where they are strong already, and Biden still has a problem in the swing states where Trump acolytes still maintain a lead over Biden. So a mixed bag, but some good news for Democrats in a year where Biden's popularity has slipped.
So I've seen reports that Pennsylvania, they were able to get something on the Supreme Court, the Democrats, so that they've shored up the fact that when elections get taken to the courts, they won't be in front of MAGA judges, so that you can actually maybe get a fair hearing on election results. There was the thing you mentioned in Virginia, where Youngkin was trying to position himself as an abortion moderate by saying, let's take control of both houses in my state so I can back a 15-week abortion ban. And the voters said 15-week doesn't cut it for us, so I'm going to let you guys. And so the Democrats were able to hold on to the House that they had, and then they flipped the Senate. So that abortion issue played out really strongly. Alan, you had something on.
Yeah, there are just some issues that remain concerns for Democrats, especially in suburban white communities. In Suffolk County, a Democratic executive was replaced by a Republican. Now, the incumbent was term limited, but the Republicans now have complete control of the Suffolk County legislature. They control the Nassau County legislature, and Republicans picked up council seats in Queens and in the Bronx. So yes, there's good news for the Democrats, but there's also cause concern especially among suburban white voters.
So speaking of Nassau County and that suburban East End, New York, George Santos comes from that Nassau County overlapping into the Bronx, I believe. No,
Queens.
the Queens. And Republican members of the House managed to get another resolution up to expel George Santos from the House. That didn't work out too well, guys. Did you all check the voting on that?
I don't understand that. Even members of his own party are calling for his removal.
78% of his constituents want him out of office.
Yeah, 17%, which is not
78%, not 17, 78%.
Hey, excellent.
But the House failed to expel him.
I know, and I really don't understand that when the members of the GOP want him out. How did
24 members of the GOP voted to expel him. 31 members of the Democrats voted not to expel him. About 14 other Democrats voted present. So the Republicans couldn't get rid of him just because Democrats decided, no, we're not going to expel this guy. Somebody interpret that for me.
Well, it requires a 2/3 vote.
Mm-hmm.
Even if the Democrats had all voted to expel him, it wouldn't have happened. One of the things that the Republican congressional representative from Suffolk County, they want Santos out. They actually initiated this because when they run for re-election, they don't want that baggage. So they're trying to distance themselves. I think some of the Democrats were concerned that if Santos was expelled, and this is a very rare thing, some of their members would be at risk, would be targeted ideologically by the Republican Party, which just censured Rashid Tlaib and tried to censure Ilhan Omar. So they're worried. They don't want to set that precedent that's okay to throw members out. At least that's how I read it.
My question is, how do you equate a guy with 20 some odd indictments on him for all kinds of fraud, chicanery, check kiting, all kinds of, and a ton of lying about who he is, which is why 78% of his constituents want him out, with people like Omar and Tlaib, who are basically voting their conscience and speaking to issues that totally concern them as voting members of the House, not people who are crooks hiding behind the fact that they got elected to office and so you can't kick them out. I don't understand how you're going to equate that. But that's to me of the dysfunctionalism of the House of Representatives and how screwed up our country is right now when it comes to protecting our democracy and people's right to a fair hearing. Why? Tell me a little bit about this new speaker, please. I cannot understand how an insurrectionist supporter could become the Speaker of the House. Bob, you've got some insight on some of this.
I don't get it either. I'm glad, that we have a speaker at all, given what the House went through to elect this guy, Mike Johnson. And his track record mirrors, unfortunately, what MAGA Republicans want. So I can see his support from that end. But there was and of course, he was one of the architects of the drive to overturn the election and to finagle what happened on January 6th, in which that's a ceremonial thing. But he figured that, well, if we don't approve the electors, we might be able to throw this back to the state. He was part of that. He was an attorney, a constitutional attorney who talks about rigged elections. He was trying to rig that. In any case, an ABC reporter, and if I can pull up the quick clip, I will. Rachel Scott. Mm-hmm. Rachel Scott, a Black female reporter, when he was named speaker, tried to ask him literally the question that was the Republican elephant in the room, which was, as somebody who supported the overturning of the election, and that's as far as she got. All the Republicans in front of her booed her, told her to shut up, and Mike Johnson went ahead to the next question without answering that. If I can pull up that clip while we're discussing it, I will. But this is what journalists do. We ask real questions. And there was pushback from NABJ, National Association of Black Journalists, Society of Professional Journalists, and a bunch of other journalism associations, basically saying, this is what we do, idiots. We're journalists. We ask questions. You don't shut us up. But I'll try to find that clip if it's handy.
For that, I'll remind people that back in the day, and we've been at this a long time, which speaks to how old we are, but we can remember the time when journalists in Washington, when a politician, whether it be the president or somebody else, tried to duck a key question from one reporter at one outlet, the very next reporter would basically say, yeah, okay, that question that you ducked from this person, I think I'd like an answer to that question too. And the fact that we're no longer getting that in our Washington press corps speaks to basically how far we have deteriorated in our assiduously following the precepts of good journalism to keep the American people informed. That's my take on that. Might be an editorial statement, but that's a given to where we are. Go ahead, roll the clip if you can.
Shut up. Mr. Johnson, you helped lead the efforts to overturn the 2020 election results. Will you Shut up.
Next question.
And you could barely hear Rachel Scott. You could barely hear Rachel Scott in that clip, but she asked basically what I said. As somebody who supported the overturning of the election, can you see the woman on the bottom right of the screen?
Yeah.
Lady?
The white-haired lady? That's Virginia Fox of North Carolina. She's the one who yelled, "Shut up," while she was up there. And somebody in the back said, it's 2024 now. In other words, let's just get past this. Let's not talk about this. But that's, this is what we do. We're journalists. We ask questions. And for Mike Scott to answer that question by insulting the journalists, he can't say what what I'd suggest he do with that attitude.
Okay, so yeah, that speaks to the craziness in the House of Representatives, which brings me back to that other story, the other elephant in the room that we should be talking about, because the Mideast horrific killings and tit for tat, whatever, is taking everything off the table. But the latest move on these crazy people led by Jim Jordan to impeach Joe Biden. Where is this? I mean, there are still pressing ahead, full speed ahead, depending on their full speed, about trying to actually bring charges and actually start an impeachment of Joe Biden, despite the fact that all their early investigations have come up with little or nothing to implicate Joseph Biden, current president, with any wrongdoing. Where are we on that craziness in the House of Representatives? And what does it say about our democracy?
Well, their investigations, there are 25 to 30 people that they want to interview. And so far they've only interviewed 5 people. And there are chances that they want to go after top Biden family members. Now, the chances of actually getting them to testify, I don't know. I don't know that they can get subpoenas for these people anyhow. Alan, you might know more about the legalities of that than I do.
Bob, don't take that cartoon down. Let's talk about the cartoon. Put that cartoon back up. We mentioned the fact that they've been investigating Biden and the Biden family, looking for evidence of impeachment. And so far, their own witnesses have been saying, I don't think we got anything here that's of an impeachable nature. So the cartoon actually speaks to the perspicacity, the whatever of their investigative people and their evidence so far. Don't worry, we'll just make stuff up.
And we should give credit. That's Bill Bramhall of the New York Daily News.
Well, you know what? That's very interesting because I saw another headline that said, if you compare this impeachment investigation to Donald Trump's trying to get the presidential nomination again from his party, and he's ahead in the polls, we'll segue to that in a second. Somebody was saying, what you need to do is laugh Donald Trump off the stage. All his craziness, instead of haranguing and taking it seriously, just call it what it is, stupidity worth laughing. And if you laugh him off the stage, it just might put a dent in his supposed giant lead, because right now the polls I've seen, the latest stuff shows him ahead of Joe Biden in 5 of those key states that Joe Biden needs to win to stay in office. But Alan talked to us about the fact that this guy can be facing 91 indictments and plus a already convicted of fraud by a judge in New York. That's the other thing the media is not really reporting properly. They keep talking about Donald Trump's fraud trial. No, it's not a fraud trial. He's been convicted of fraud. This is just about the penalty phase of that conviction. I'm tired of hearing his fraud trial. No, his penalty for committing fraud is the way those stories need to be worded. But talk to us about how this guy could be leading in 5 states.
Look, this is the thing.
I know it's early, but
well, in 2016, Hillary Clinton got 3 million more votes than Donald Trump. And Donald Trump was elected because of peculiarities in the American system. The United States does not have one election. We have 51 elections, 50 states and DC. And Donald Trump won enough of the small elections in overwhelmingly white states to get elected president, although 3 million more people voted for Hillary. So what's happening is they're arguing that there are 6 key states in the United States. The other 45 contests are either going to go Democrat or Republican because of the way the patterns are in those states. The one who wins those 6 states is going to get elected president of the United States. Right now, there's a lot of concern that Joe Biden, even from people who like what he did, is not going to be able to function as president of the United States. There's a congressman from Minnesota, a Democrat named Phillips, who's decided that he would declare for the Democratic nomination, not because he wants to be president, but because someone younger has to challenge Biden. And the Democrats so far have not been addressing the fact that Biden is going to be over 80, and he's going to be close to, I think, 80, almost 84, 85 in a second term. And maybe he shouldn't be running.
Mhm.
And I think that's what these polls reflect.
yeah, okay. Well, my point is the guy's under 91 indictments. He was an insurrectionist. He basically tried to overthrow the government that he was president of when he got voted out of office. Why do people, I know you keep talking about he's winning these predominantly white states. I don't want to say white people are crazy that they can't see this man as bad for their democracy, but if you keep phrasing it that way, that's the way I'm going to have to come out with it. Why would these people think he would be good in a second attempt at running this country? He's a wannabe autocrat. Okay, what's our next topic? Because I don't really want to belabor this. Eric Adams, the mayor of New York. Let's not forget him. Speaking of craziness and overthrowing and whatever, the feds are investigating the last election where Eric Adams became mayor of New York. Who wants to tackle that? Because his young campaign guru, who did a lot of his campaign financing work, is a 25-year-old young Black female. And basically, she's now under fire because there seems to be some collusion for campaign irregularities between his campaign and the government of Turkey. What do we have on that, and how desperate and how bad is it looking for Eric Adams?
Well, I think the focus is from what I see, the focus seems to be on the young lady in question here, Brianna Suggs, is the woman that you were mentioning. And I don't see anything directly pointing towards Adams, except he has an association with Turkey. There's no question about that. He's boasted himself that he's probably the only mayor that has visited Turkey as often as he has, or in fact at all. And there's speculation that many of the contributions that went to his campaign were straw contributions, originally from Turkey, but donated by someone else. I haven't seen any concrete evidence. I don't know if you have, Bob, but that's what they're going for. They're saying that his campaign was funded completely or partially by Turkey, and none of that was documented, so it's illegal.
It was trying to do straw donors by keeping the limit for individual donors low. That's the trick that they think they've got them on.
It's a very bad look. I mean, she's 25 now, so she was 23. I mean, when she was actually his campaign. I mean, that's kind of young. Let's say she was a whiz. Okay, let's give her that. At what she was, she was a smart administrator. But yeah, when you run for election in any city, there's courses you can take. There are conferences that they have that let you know exactly how you can handle contributions. Because I've seen this even in other states. I'm sure she must have gone to those, so can't say she didn't know. It's a very bad look. And Ray, yeah, I mean, when the FBI marches to your home and marches out with the volume,
devices, all your paperwork, and
it's a bad look. Yeah.
I know of an instance of that happening to a mayor, and that was the mayor of Mount Vernon a few years back. And there were a lot of pictures of the FBI marching in, taking boxes out. And it turns out that actually they couldn't find anything. And so when he said you can go back all you want, they went back like 7 or 8 years and found an irregularly filed tax return. Okay. And so instead of letting him amend the irregularly filed tax return, they just brought him up on those charges, as opposed to, like, most other principals can amend tax returns, and it's been done for other politicians, but he was not allowed to do that. So he got a slap on the wrist, et cetera, et cetera. Go ahead, Alan.
Didn't this also happen to a former president of the United States very recently?
About them not finding any grounds on this guy. This guy's going. That's another serious criminal charge that he's up for.
Now, I think the thing with Adams is there's been a lot of accusations of cronyism and the appointment of people who are basically not qualified for the positions, but because they're close to him. And this, when you're going after someone, often what happens is you get you on the technicality. Like they're going to get Trump on the inflated value of his property when he's been doing corrupt things, business things, his entire career. And I think that's part of what we're seeing with Adams now, is that there's this pattern, but they're going to go with this very specific thing.
Okay, well, we shall see how that all turns out. That's going to be very interesting. We're going to keep an eye on that one.
And we have, just to keep us on track, we have about 3 minutes left.
Okay, let's segue to the elephant in the global room, which is what's happening in the Mideast. And it's just such a hard topic to deal with. Alan, we put you on the spot because you've got all that historical stuff to deal with, including your own history racially. So walk us through how two wrongs don't make a right, and how difficult this is before we run out of time. That's a lot.
Yeah. Everything that happens is, what's the starting point? On October 7th, Hamas, which controls Gaza, invades Israel and slaughters 1,400 people, kidnaps 240 and brings them back as hostages. Israel responds with a massive bombing attack on Hamas on Gaza that has now killed something like 10,000 people. I can't see either side as justified in any way by these kind of massacres of civilians. And I'm worried that, well, one, this could lead to a broader war, and really everybody's concerned about that. But two, when you have, it's revenge after revenge after revenge. I think Gandhi said, if eye for an eye, everybody ends up blind. And I think that's what we're looking at, revenge after revenge. And the last thing I'm worried about here is I don't see how the Israeli invasion and pledge to wipe out Hamas is going to free the 240 hostages. I am worried that, we know how Hamas is brutal. We've seen it already with the murder of the 1,400. And I'm looking at it, I'm saying, if Hamas is trapped at the end, I'm just afraid they're going to kill the hostages. And so I don't understand the Israeli strategy at all. And I don't understand why the United States is supporting it.
Yeah, this is, I always come back to two wrongs don't make a right. And so tired of finger pointing, tired of who's paying and whose atrocity is worse than who's right or who's wrong. Somebody needs to figure out a way to make peace. The bottom line is, if Israel can have a state in ancestral lands, Palestine should be able to have a state in ancestral lands. Why the Israelis can't seem to understand they can't keep taking Palestinian lands, and why Hamas can't seem to understand why you can't keep killing Israelis. If they can't figure out a way to solve that, there's going to be no peace. I've got
and we're about there.
Okay, that's it. This has been Media Watch, folks. I'm your co-host, Eric Tait.
I'm Bob Anthony. Catch up to us on YouTube at Media Watch EVT.
I'm Raymond Peterson.
And I'm their friend and guest, Alan Singer. Thank you for having me.
Folks, stay safe. We'll catch you the next time.